Okay.
Counselor, will you please make sure that your mics are close to you this evening so everything is fully recorded and you're listening? There's 49 on Zoom.
49 on Zoom. So you don't know how many want to testify though. So we don't have a way of knowing that or? Oh, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Didn't bring my faraway glasses.
I read that carefully.
Jim.
Yeah.
Jim.
The last 2 minutes are always the longest minutes in the day. 1001, 1002. Yep. I'll call the meeting to order. Richard, do you have the roll call? All right, this is a public hearing tonight on an appeal of approved planning application number 23-045, approval of a conditional use permit to construct a 110-room hotel, 2 restaurant spaces, meeting rooms, and spa, as well as 32 villa suites, and B, approval of a plan review for commercial design standards, parking, and signage at 0 Beach Loop Drive, property zone CD1 in the city of Bandon. The subject property is located at Township 28 South, Range 15 West, Section 36 BC, Tax Lot 219, and Section 36C, Tax Lots 400, 500, 600, 700, and 1500. And this will be the procedure. I now declare the public hearing open at 6:02 p.m. this 21st day of February 2024. This is an official public appeal hearing before the City Council of the City of Bandon upon the appeal of approved planning application number 23-045 at 0 Beach Loop Drive, which is property in the controlled development CD1 zone in the City of Bandon. The applicable substantive criteria are contained in section 17.20, conditional uses in the controlled development 1 CD1 zone, 16.12 conditional uses, 17.94 commercial design standards, 17.96 off-street parking and loading, 17.90 signs, 1604.070 type 3 procedure and appeal of reviewing body's decision of the Bandon Municipal Code and the policies of the comprehensive plan. Please address your comments to these criteria or criteria you.
Somebody
Correct.
needs to mute.
Right. Are they muted? Or criteria you believe to apply to this decision. A notice of appeal has been filed by the Oregon Coast Alliance. A separate notice of appeal has been filed by Mr. Bruce Spencer. This is the de novo hearing on the merits of the appeals pursuant to BMC 16.04.070, parent E, parent 3, parent C. The applicant has made changes to the application now appealed. The issues on appeal are limited to the issues raised in the notices of appeal or to changes made to the application. Official notice is hereby given that the City Council consider laws, ordinances, court decisions, etc., without having them established as evidence in the hearing record. A copy of the minutes of this hearing will be available in the city offices. A copy of the rules and procedures that I am reading will be available in the city offices as part of this file. Call for abstentions. Objections to jurisdiction. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge whether it is proper for this City Council to hold this appeal hearing? Okay. Are there any councilors present who wish to declare ex parte contact, site visit, feel they may have a conflict of interest, bias, or other reason to be disqualified from participation in this appeal? Well, I have some ex parte contact. I believe it was back in October. I contacted Sherry McGrath to ask her if Perk Development. I said, Sherry, looking for a bit of information. What projects nationwide has Perk Development completed? Thanks for any help you can provide. And at that time, she had Mr. Perkins call me and we had a nice talk. He talked about he said no, that they had not developed any projects. And he gave me some of the names for the venture capitalists that might fund this. And there was places like JSB Capital Group, Canelo Alvarez. So anyway, that may have been in October, or this says 12/01 December. And because I was still trying to figure out because I had gone online and I had seen several PERC project developments that were pending for other places in Coos Bay. So again, I contacted Sherry and asked if there had been if any of these projects in the Coos Bay area had been, at what process they were in. And instead she was going to I asked if Mr. Perkins could give me the information in writing, because it was really hard for me to get everything down over the phone. But instead, apparently they did not answer me, but they contacted their attorney, and the attorney contacted me and basically said this was ex parte contact. So I am apologizing for that. All I was trying to do was just find out if the developer had actually developed any major projects so that we could look at them. I wasn't trying to get any specific information or anything about the project itself. So for that, I apologize, and that is my ex parte contact. Does anyone else have any ex parte contact?
I had a site visit on Monday to try and better understand the region topography, but
Okay.
that's the extent of my.
Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge any of the council members' qualifications to participate in this hearing? Okay. What does the staff have to report for the record?
Thanks. June, could you pull up my presentation, please? Right, and I've got a PowerPoint for you. If you're having trouble seeing it, you're welcome to request. June has a couple copies of that presentation. What I'll be doing is going over the staff report, and stop me if you have any questions. All right, and I'm gonna, okay. So to start, the applicant is requesting approval of a 110 room hotel. Oh, June, can you move that? Sorry. With meeting rooms, that's considered the Meadow Lodge for now, just for purposes. You'll see some pictures later. Also a restaurant, which is located in the Dune Lodge, and then 32 suites and villas. There's two different kinds, and you'll see pictures of those as well. The property is located in the Controlled Development 1 zone, and the use that they're requesting we consider to be a hotel, motel, and commercial retail sales and services, which are both listed as conditional uses. So we'll go through both of those separately. Oh man, I thought this would work and it's not. June, can you go to the next slide? All right, so to give you a little overview of where this site is located, I've outlined the project site for you in red. It is bounded by Face Rock Drive to the north, Beach Loop Drive to the west, some of the Donut Hole to the east, and then also a residential neighborhood along Carter Street. Next slide, thanks. This is just an overview of their site plan. You can see the two lodges are located in the center of the site, and then there are some villas up to the north and then also to the south. You'll see that they propose a configuration of the streets that is not what's there right now. So if you can go to, I think it's the next slide. I skipped ahead too much. I'll show you there's two side by side that show the different street configurations. So this is an overview of the buildings. These are both of the lodges in profile. Again, these are located also in the documents that we gave you. The applicant's restated findings contain all of these images. These are the suites that they've provided as well. So these are a rendering and then an elevation drawing of one of them. Next slide. Okay, and then here's the streets that I thought I put next. So the outline And kind of that pinkish hue is what exists right now. So underneath one of the parcels is an old subdivision plat from around the 1900s. It contains really tiny lots and then this old configuration of what would have been future streets. So what they're proposing to do, oops, can you go back to that one? No, that's all right, is vacate those streets and plat new ones, but that is actually going to be in a separate application that would be heard by the city council at a future date. So all of their proposals tonight, the setbacks, the lot coverage, all of that is based on this configuration, but I just want to point out that that configuration has not been approved yet and would happen in a separate action. If you could go to the next slide. So sort of backing up a little bit, that's all the basic information about the site and the request. The Planning Commission held multiple public hearings reviewing this request, and they approved it on November 2nd. We did send out a notice of decision and we received 2 appeals that we found to be valid. So if you can go to the next slide. There were some changes in the application between what was submitted and reviewed by the Planning Commission and then what you're going to be reviewing tonight. I've summarized these here. There's a little bit more detail in the staff report and in the applicant's materials, but primarily one of the issues that came up during the Planning Commission public hearings was the variance request. The applicant has since removed that request. So they've actually lowered the building so that no part of the building exceeds the 28-foot height limit except for an elevator shaft. And we'll go through it in a moment, but in the CD1 zone, you are allowed to go up to 35 feet as long as you sort of check 5 boxes and you do it in front of a body that agrees with their findings. So they've removed that variance request. They're going to, the whole building will be within the 35-foot limit. And like I said, just that elevator shaft is the part that is above 28 feet. Because they had to push the building down, and I'm sure they'll explain this a little bit more, they have had to reconfigure some of the rooms and the parking on site to make everything fit. So you'll notice that their parking configuration is also different between last time and now. They've actually increased the number of parking spaces that they'll be providing. Last time, the Planning Commission also had some issues with the RV parking. There weren't RV parking spaces designated on site, but in the changes, they've now designated 9 RV parking spaces in addition to the 178 parking spaces that they've for regular sized vehicles. They've also increased the size of those lodges because, like I said, they had to do some reconfiguring, so things have changed slightly, which also caused a slight increase in the building coverage. And then one of our issues last time with the proposal was that we were a little bit unsure about what the street configuration was going to look like. So they've put in additional evidence regarding what exactly the street configuration will look like and what the setbacks are from those new proposed streets. Next slide. So I'm going to go through the procedural burden of proof sort of in very high level detail. There is much more detail found in the staff report, so I encourage you, if you have any questions about those, please stop me because I'll just be doing a very broad overview. Next slide. Okay, so the first thing is that this project is located in the Controlled Development 1 zone. And so I've pulled out the purpose of the zone because I think it's important to start there. And I'm just going to read one section to you, not the whole thing, but it says, it is intended that a mix of uses would be permitted, including residential, tourist, commercial, and recreational. Future development is to be controlled in order to enhance and protect the area's unique qualities. So I just wanted to put that out there to state that it is acceptable, and in our comprehensive plan, it says it's acceptable to have a mixture of commercial and residential uses. There are a number of commercial uses already in that corridor. That already exist. So in the staff report, I've gone through the lot size, the setbacks, the height, the lot coverage. Staff found that there was sufficient evidence submitted into the record to determine that this application met all of those standards. Next slide. The one to go through in greater detail is the height, because like I said, 28 feet is the standard east of Beach Loop Drive, but there isn't a sort of exception process for going up to 35 feet. As long as you don't negatively impact views, you don't cut off sunlight, you don't negatively impact aesthetic character, that all portions of any roof above 28 feet are sloped a minimum of 312. And that was sort of the issue last time, and they have to be sloped down and away from the highest point of the structure. And then you also have to increase your setbacks for every foot that you go up. So like I have on the bottom here, the only part exceeding that 28 feet is the elevator shaft. So if you can go to the next slide. I pulled out one of the images from the applicant's plans that I think kind of show you in the best view possible what the impact of that increase in height is. So they show, if you can see this from where you are, the top of the building is 28 feet and there is a small elevator shaft that is 35 feet. When you look at the sight lines from either direction, none of them are impacted by that additional height. So we found that they met the criteria necessary to allow that 35-foot height increase. Next slide. All right, so because this is a conditional use, we did go through the criteria in chapter 16.12. I'm again just going to kind of go over it broadly, but I did want to note that we'll be pulling out 2 points to talk through in greater detail, which are the water and the transportation, which seem to be the biggest points of contention. So I'll talk about those in a little bit greater detail. But what we look for in approval standards are that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So what I just read you on that controlled development one slide, the purpose of the zone, that comes directly from the comprehensive plan. It's pulled out and put in our municipal code. So it is right for that use to exist there. It identifies the CD1 zone as a tourist commercial use and area. There's also a standard regarding dimensional standards and the purpose of the zone. So like I said, it's in the CD1 zone. It is right for the use to be there. And the site is 23.2 acres. So it's a pretty large site. The overall development of the site after streets are platted and buildings are in, there's still about 80% of the site left as open space. So I think that tells you that there's sufficient space to be able to site those buildings there. Oops, can you go back? Sorry, thanks. There's also a finding that we've made about site characteristics. Like I said, they are utilizing the topography of the site. For anyone who, sounds like Peter's been out there, but if anyone else hasn't been out on site, there is some interesting topography changes. There are some dunes out there, some little depressions, and the applicant's plans show that they're sort of trying to utilize what exists on site. Take advantage of it is maybe not the right word, but incorporate it into the design. Public facilities. So I think this is one that we'll talk about in greater detail and probably the one that's created the most stress for anybody reviewing this application. What it says is that the city or the applicant has to prove that there are sufficient or adequate public facilities to serve the use, that we have the right capacity. So what we did in the staff report was we reviewed our water master plan, our sewer master plan, our storm drainage master plan, and our transportation system plan. And the evidence provided by the applicant to determine whether or not we had sufficient capacity to serve the impact of the use. We did find that we have sufficient capacity in all of those systems to serve the use. I think there was also some question about electric, which we also got a statement from Jim Wickstrom, our electric department director, who said we have sufficient electric capacity to serve the use. So there's no question from us there. And like I said, we'll talk about that just in a little greater detail. And then neighborhood impact. The applicant's going to provide pretty significant buffering screening along all of the property lines to ensure that the impact to the neighborhood is minimized as much as possible. We've also included some recommended conditions of approval to help with that too. One of them would be the lighting plan, that they'll have to shield all of their lighting to make sure that there's no additional glare going into any neighboring properties. The screening has to be at least 6 feet tall, so that's also going to limit any disturbance to any surrounding residential neighborhoods. We did identify that there's probably some additional work that needs to be done with storm drainage, which we will require as a condition of approval, that they'll have to prepare a plan as part of our zoning compliance review. Our storm drainage master plan is a little bit older and there's limited data around that area, but we do know that they're going to create storm drainage and have to submit some sort of mitigation plan to ensure that that it works with the existing system that we have that's primarily made up of culverts and drainage areas down there. And then finally, there's also been some concern around construction traffic, and what we're recommending is a construction traffic mitigation plan. We've sort of purposefully left it open-ended as to what route or anything like that to be determined later at a time when we might have more information. But the idea is that we would be able to limit maybe the hours of operation or where trucks are traveling to limit the impact to the surrounding neighborhood. And sorry, there's one more condition on this one too, which is that normally conditional use permits are valid for 1 year, but they've requested a 2-year period, which it says in the code that they can request that, and that would be granted by the city council if you so choose. And just to be clear, the conditional use permit, that year period is you have to be sort of working towards development. So they'd have to get zoning compliance in that year. It's sort of a struggle if you're going from conceptual to getting full building plans within a year period. So we think 2 years is pretty normal. Next slide. So I'm going to talk just a little bit more about water. In the staff report, I did provide you with a little bit of information. I know you probably know more than I do about the city's water master plan. It was recently adopted by the council in 2022. It covers a 20-year growth period. What it does is sort of looks at what we have in the system. It evaluates the current performance. It tries to find any deficiencies, and then we develop a capital improvement plan that tells us what sort of improvements we're going to need to make over the 20-year period to fit the growth that we expect. That plan tells us that we have sufficient water rights and we have sufficient water plant capacity to serve the use. There's no question there. Where we've brought up questions in the past is around the raw water storage. And just to kind of explain the differences, our water comes from creeks. It then gets pumped into the plant. It's cleaned. It goes out to everybody in the city. There becomes an issue when we have drier months in August and September, where the area that we pull from the creek becomes much lower. It's also pretty sediment laden, so it becomes much more challenging to pull water from that area. So the water master plan identifies a couple fixes to that. One is a large reservoir, the other is a groundwater. We're in the process of doing a groundwater study. But also we're moving on dredging that reservoir that's in the creek right now to make that raw water storage better. But that's an issue regardless of any development that we get. That's a problem that we face without any changes to more people moving here or anything like that. So just want to be clear that there's a difference between our raw water storage issue that we still have and the city's ability to make water, which we have plenty of capacity to serve. I did confirm with our city engineer, Steve Major of the Dyer Partnership, the city has sufficient potable water to serve the use. And the other thing that I'll note in the staff report is there's some question about whether or not the water line on Beach Loop Drive, what size it is. I think we just don't know. Our maps are a little bit unclear. So there may be a need to upgrade that water line. We're unsure. So regardless, though, it's a planned project and it could happen or would happen if it was needed to. The other thing is that the applicant pays system development charges, and those cover the cost of impact to the system. So they're called an impact charge for that reason. It doesn't necessarily mean that they'd be used on site or for this particular project. It goes into a pot and is used for any of the projects listed in that capital improvement plan in the city's water master plan that are impacted by new development. You can go to the next slide. Okay, sorry, I'm talking a lot. I'm also just going to talk to you briefly about transportation because I think there was some confusion in the number of transportation impact assessments that were submitted. And so the one that was submitted most recently is the one that I've pulled for you here. And I'll just briefly explain to you that there's two different ways of measuring transportation impact. One is inside the city, on city-owned streets. So any of our local, or collector streets, we use what's called a level of service. I'm not an expert, so don't ask me how that number is determined. But our, transportation system plan identifies that any of the local streets are collectors. The standard is that we acknowledge that they will operate at a level of service D or better. If they exceed that D, that's when there is a significant impact that would require upgrading the system. So I'll go through those first. That Beach Loop Drive and 11th Street, that's an intersection that would be a city-owned right-of-way, and then Beach Loop Drive and Seabird Drive, and then Beach Loop Drive and site access. Those are all city-owned rights-of-way. What they did in the TIA is they provided a level of service. Let's see, what's the right word here? They provided our standard here, which is level of service D, and then they provided information about what the level of service would be in a build or no build scenario. So whether or not anything happens in 2026, both of those intersections, both Beach Loop and 11th and Beach Loop and Seabird Drive remain an A. Nothing changes. The Beach Loop Drive and site access, which doesn't exist right now, becomes a B, but those still all meet or exceed level of service D. The other intersection that's listed on here is Highway 101 and Seabird Drive, which is an ODOT controlled intersection. And they have a different way of describing the impact to the transportation system. They use what's called a volume to capacity ratio. And their maximum is 0.80. And you can see that in 2023, the existing volume to capacity ratio is 0.22. The no build in 2026 is 0.28, and the build scenario is 0.49. So it's not that there's no impact from development. We're not saying that. We're just saying that it does not exceed the standard set by ODOT or the city. So if you can go to the next slide. Okay, so one of the questions that I've been asked the most, and I wanted to address here, is why can't we ask them to put a street from Face Rock Drive out to Highway 101? There's been a request to sort of funnel all of the traffic out on a different street rather than bringing it along Seabird, which is identified right now as a collector. The TIA that was prepared by the applicants team, and then they had a third party actually assess it and ensure and analyze it to make sure that it was accurate. States that there really is no impact to the city's transportation system that would exceed our standard and require any sort of improvement to our system. So just want you to know that this is something that we looked at and we just don't think is viable for this. I think there's a couple of things here. One, the connection would be outside of the project site boundaries. Two, there is a missing link and it goes through private property for the right of way. We don't own the right of way. It hasn't been dedicated to us. The area that this street would go through is also not annexed inside city limits. It's in the donut hole. And four, and maybe most important, is that if you find that the TIA is accurate and that there is no impact to the city system, then requiring an offsite improvement could be seen as an unlawful exaction, which is where there isn't a roughly proportional connection between what the impact of the development is and what the condition of approval is. That the condition would sort of exceed what their impact is. But again, I want to put out again that we understand that there is going to be an impact no matter what in construction, and that we are recommending a construction traffic mitigation plan to hopefully keep those trucks off of residential streets. Next slide. Okay, so we also reviewed in the staff report the sign criteria, the commercial design standards and parking. If you have any questions about those, let me know. I'll let you know that they have two signs proposed, one which is at the intersection of Beach Loop Drive and their sort of main entrance at what would be the connection at Carter, and then another sign at Face Rock Drive. there are a number of commercial design standards. We found that there was sufficient evidence in the record to show that they met all of those commercial design standards. Those are primarily related to landscaping, to screening, lighting, pedestrian amenities, building facades, and roof pitch. Anything that was sort of in that code and unclear based on the stage of development they're at right now, we did list as a condition of approval to ensure compliance with that particular code criteria. And parking, like I said, they have provided 178 vehicle parking spaces, 9 RV parking spaces. We did also put a condition of approval in there that they may, according to the code, provide compact parking spaces in part of some of those regular vehicle parking spaces. Next slide. And these are just 2 pictures of the signs so that you don't have to dig through to find them. The one on the top, and I think what they've done here is a lot easier to understand. So there's a shadow of a person. You can see the sort of comparison between if a person was standing next to it. The one on the top is at that entrance at Beach Loop and their site entrance. And then the one on the bottom is at the entrance at Face Rock Drive. And because it came up during the applicant's initial submittal, and it's been brought up in multiple testimony, I just wanted to be clear that there are wetlands on the site. We have two identified wetlands, but neither of them are considered significant wetlands, and our code kind of differentiates protection of just sort of wetlands and then significant wetlands. So there is there's some criteria that apply to wetlands, which we included in the staff report for you, if you have any questions, but it's not protected the way that a significant wetland would be. And that's it. Please let me know if you have any questions.
I do have a question. Is the missing link that you referred to in the east-west road, is that a developed property or an undeveloped?
It's an undeveloped property, and that is a great question, because it's something I meant to mention too, is that because Face Rock along 20th to Highway 101 is a planned collector, when those properties do develop, that road will be developed as a collector. It may be developed piecemeal because you can't always put the cost of development on one person to go all the way out to Highway 101, but it would be developed at some point.
Okay, so it could be developed without using eminent domain. If it's an undeveloped property, it might be easier to purchase.
Yes, so if that property was developed, and Shayla, correct me if I'm wrong, if someone proposed development, we would require that they
Connect.
dedicate the right of way to us because it's in a master plan that identifies it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the hearing, this is the rules and general conduct. I hope that I don't have to say that, but this hearing is to be orderly and courteous. When it is your turn to testify, please speak clearly and state your name and address for the minutes clerk. It is recommended that all testimony also be submitted in writing for the record. So do we have the list of, how do I get them? What? I can't hear you.
The appellant, the applicants. I think we have to start with the appellant and the applicant before we take the testimony.
Wait a minute. I have the script here and I wanted to make absolutely sure that it was correct. So if it isn't.
No, I think the script is correct, sorry.
It is correct? God, I knew it. I've been mayor 20 years and I don't think I've ever had a smooth, flawless script, but so I asked specifically how important it was. Okay, so do we have a new script?
No, you're right, you're right.
We're okay going ahead.
Okay,
Okay, go ahead with the testimony.
This is the first.
all right.
Speaker would like.
But now, wait a minute. This hearing is, it does say the applicant will be, if you've just given me a chance to say that, the applicant will be granted 20 minutes. Gee.
Good evening, counselors. My name is Dan O'Connor with O'Connor Law LLC, and we're the attorney for the applicant and the owner of the proposed development. My office address is 670 G Street, Suite B, Jacksonville, Oregon, 97530 for the record. Let me first start off and say, please, no apologies necessary concerning the ex parte
Thank you.
contact. It's just with Orca being involved with this attorneys, we just want to have the
Sure.
record clear.
Thank you.
And then also, I just want to say thank you to Dana Nichols for excellent presentation. She kind of stole my thunder in the sense that this is appeal hearing. And so the appellants will be given the opportunity to present their case. And so typically I would go through the whole detailed application, but there's not sufficient time for that. And I'm sure you guys have reviewed what's going on.
Mhm.
Just quickly, so there's a row of people here. I just want to introduce our team briefly. I have Garrett West from O'Connor Law, Sherry McGrath, I have Darren Sandino, Brett Perkins, and I have Chris Bell and Mark Giles behind me, who are the architects on the project. It is our ultimate intention and objective to develop a first-class hotel site in the city of Bandon. That is why we're here. And so during the planning commission, we came in after the planning commission hearing we wanted to address concerns raised by Orca and Mr. Spencer and other people that provided testimony and to bring clarity to the land use application. And so part of the thing, and Dana went through in detail, is that this application now meets all of the applicable standards and criteria as set forth in the staff report. We agree with the proposed conditions of approval that are also set forth in the staff report. And I will add a couple other proposed stipulations at the end. Also, just want to thank the staff. I want to thank Dana again and the city attorney and the city manager. That when we were brought into this to meet with them to bring clarity to the proposal, they were extremely helpful and cooperative in identifying the issues and helping us bring forth a better proposal to the council. One of the big things that was focused by Orca was the height of the original Meadow Lodge structure, that it was originally proposed to be 35 feet. In response to Orca's concerns, as stated, we lowered it to 28 feet. We have the elevator shaft that does go to 35 feet, but it complies with the requirements, the slope, the visual screening, and so forth. And so we did that by reducing our ceiling heights and in lowering the foundation. And so it's a lower setting. And as in the slide that Dana showed, it's better screened from neighboring property owners. The other issue that was brought up is the traffic. And so there was originally an original traffic report done in September, and there was confusion during the planning commission hearing about certain findings in the traffic study. And so when we were brought in, we reviewed it, and then we consulted with an additional traffic engineer to review the findings. And what the biggest change is from the original traffic study to the new traffic study and the concurrence letter is that we added components to it. Safety, collision findings. There were a total of 2 collisions at Seabird and Beach Loop Drive over the last, I want to say 8 years, both non-injury. One was an accident with a fixed item. Someone ran into something, a fence. And then there was another fender bender involving 2 passenger cars. We also added elements for site distance for coming into the site, which is addressed in there. And as Dana walked through it, you know, we still comply with all the mobility standards from both ODOT at Seabird and 101 and the level of service standards for the city streets within the city of Bandon, which are level of service D. The only one is that will go from, well, there remain A, but then our access onto Beach Loop Drive will be B, level B, 10-second, potential 10-second delay. The other main issue that was brought up during the planning commission was from residents on Carter Street. And so when I first met with the city, I can't remember, I guess it was December sometime. There was confusion on the city's part on what actual right-of-ways, permanent right-of-ways are you proposing? And my question to the city is, what is the configuration that you desire? In the configuration that is in this amended, I don't know if I say amended, in the revised application is the configuration requested by the city. And it makes sense. It's consistent with the TSP. Now, the owners along Carter Street, and I'll call them the Carter Street neighbors, these are the owners that live to the east of the project, had concerns that if Carter Street is developed, improved, like we propose, that people use that, would head east and cut through, was it Spinnaker? I can't remember the exact street name.
Spinnaker.
Lincoln down to Seabird Lane. Thank you. I just want to make sure that everyone understands, we have no objection if the city, we make that street improvement, if the city wants to barrier it, just like on Madison Street, we have no objection to that if you want it dead-ended on our site. And so I just want to make sure that's clear. Also, in addition, whether or not you want to do a barrier, like, for example, on Madison Street, met with the neighbor next to it, he had some design suggestions, which we will comply with, because on the Madison Street cutoff, people maneuver around it. And so we want to avoid that. But also what we will do is we will put internal direction signs at our hotel. So when guests leave, they will be directed to Beach Loop Drive, whether they're heading north or south, to avoid that if the street is not closed down. And if anyone has any questions about anything, please do not hesitate to jump in. I'm just trying to keep it brief in respect to the appellants, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I've had some discussions with Mr. Spencer, one of the appellants. I won't go into the details of that, but one of the things that in his appeal, and pardon me, I need to grab my glasses, is one statement is, I appeal to this planning commission's decision due to the promotion of the economic well-being of the city and its residents not being fully addressed. And so in response to that, you probably seen that I did the research, some community outreach in terms of what would be the direct economic impact from the proposed. This isn't a multiplier. These are just the straight numbers. In terms of system development charges, the total would be payable would be $1,311,971. $504,000 would be allocated to water improvements, $205,000 for sewer, $296,000 to storm drainage, and $305,000 for transportation. Then working with the Coos County Assessor, their commercial appraiser in April from the finance department, as to real property taxes, and this would be our annual real property taxes, would be $903,000 a year. I understand that the city of Bandon only gets a certain allocation, which
Very
is,
little.
when I looked at it, I was shocked.
Yes, so
I must say,
So that's not a figure you know.
yeah, but with the allocation for bonding, that sort of stuff, it's around $250,000 annually. And I was definitely shocked by your millage rate.
We were.
O-
we
Okay,
argue
yes,
every day.
yes. But I don't know if this helps, but the city of Phoenix, Oregon is actually considerably less. And
Really?
yeah, and they suffered the Alameda fires. And so with,
Ooh, ooh.
yeah, so it's been a tough go for the city of Phoenix. Then on the transient occupancy tax is this is based on a 50% occupancy. We did the calculations in April assisted. It would be based on 50% occupation would be $1,673,000 annually. Of that, based on, and there's a long story, and I know you guys know it about the allocation and so forth, but based on the allocation used now, of that, 1,030,000 would be allocated to the Bandon General Fund, and then 659,000 and change would be for the tourist development program. So our response to that is this hotel will provide an economic benefit just on initially with the SDCs and in a couple of years with the TOT, the transient occupancy tax. And so that's just to respond to Mr. Spencer's specific claim. And then I just want to say in the staff report is I want to sell the project because I believe in the project. It's a beautiful design. It's taking up 20% lot coverage, and that includes structures, impervious surface. So basically 80% of the property, the 23 plus or minus acres, will be in open space. And then what is the alternative? Dana pointed out in her staff report that just basically a run-of-the-mill residential development with 200 homes, 50% lot coverage for structure, 65% of impervious surface. It's just, we think this is a good design. It's a good fit. We're not trying to come in and we want to be part of the community. And that's why we think it's a great proposal. One other issue has come up with a lot of people I talked about, we've investigated ourselves, is Beach Loop Drive. In the sense there's no shoulder, there's no walking area. And so we will have walking paths that'll be open to the public throughout our property. And in addition, we also want to contribute at time of building permit issuance, $20,000 to the city of Bandon for their engineering and planning costs for the multimodal pathway with Beach Loop Drive.
Okay.
My other proposed stipulation is that we will develop the project to gold LEED equivalent. And so I want to be clear on that. And I have just two minor corrections on the staff report. On page 6, it says gold LEED certified. It should be gold LEED standard equivalent. And on page 16, it states a metal roof, and maybe but it's a living roof. It's the same roof design we always had. And so I just want to make sure
Okay.
there's clarity on that. And really, that's basically it. Based on the evidence in the record, the application meets all the standards and criteria that are applicable to it. And therefore, the applicant is simply requesting that the appeals be denied and the application be approved. Thank you.
I do have one question.
Sure.
And I noticed in the planning commission document, it showed a level of service for 101 and Seabird as an F. Now, apparently that was a mistake on someone's part.
Yeah, that was, and I can dive into that one. So ODOT does not use a level of service anymore. I talked to
But it was on their paper that I saw it.
it was on the initial TIA, and that was a mistake.
Okay,
And that's why when we updated the TIA and then we brought in another traffic engineer for concurrence, because based on discussions with the ODOT district manager, they won't use level of service anymore. And the example provided is if there's a, I mean, 101 is a high volume road during, especially during the summer. If there's a side road that maybe has 10 or 12 trips per day, that would technically be a level of service F on an ODOT facility. That's why they changed the volume to capacity standard to avoid that.
Okay, but this wasn't this was 111 new cars down there. I mean,
Well, the level of service, the standard is no longer used by ODOT. And then what this, there's no secret. This development will increase traffic on the roads. No one is hiding that. And it'll be 121 peak hour trips.
thank you. Anyone else have, I guess we can ask questions without taking up your time. Anybody else have any questions?
I'd like to know, Dana.
Well,
Okay, no, it's okay.
it's all right, because let's ask Mr. O'Connor if
Yeah.
if you have. All right, then, thank you.
Thank you.
You'll have time for rebuttal.
Yes,
later.
thank you.
Thank you. What is that noise?
Sorry. That was
Oh,
Somebody's kicking something.
I didn't see you sitting there.
Time
so-
is short.
Sorry. Now for the time for the appellants to speak. Is there anybody here representing Orca? Well, at 3:00, which was the deadline to submit, they submitted 1,000 pages. And since we are not speed readers, we do have some documents from their attorney, Sean Malone, but the last one was dated November 23rd. It had a lot of information about the variance that has since been removed. So we were shocked at 3:00 to get 1,000 pages, and obviously we haven't read them. So we thought maybe someone would be here representing them. Apparently they're not. So is
Yes, I am here.
he here? Okay.
Sorry, this is Cameron LaFollette. I thought that the city had me muted and the city had to unmute me.
Okay, we'd love to hear from you. And you have 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me. My name is Cameron LaFollette. I'm the executive director of Oregon Coast Alliance, whose address is P.O. Box 857, Astoria 97103. Our attorney cannot be present tonight, so I will make a few comments on behalf of Oregon Coast Alliance concerning this appeal of the Gravel Point Resort. Please note that I am not an attorney, and so I cannot answer legal questions with legal advice. Please also note that in our submissions today, excuse me, we requested that the record be left open for at least 7 days due to the amount of new material submitted into the record, of which much of it was ours, as was just noted. Council, this is not the place for Orca to delve into the detailed numbers behind the assertions I will be making. The details are in the testimony and the exhibits that we provided you, which is, as I said, why we would like the record to be left open a little more so that council has a chance to go through some of this. But I want to make some particular comments here that are relevant to the appeal and the materials that have been laid before you so far. The overall point that Orca is making is that Bandon does not have the infrastructure capacity to allow you to approve this resort and fulfill the requirement of the conditional use criteria in Bandon ordinance, and specifically subsection F, which requires all required public facilities and services have adequate capacity to serve the proposal and are available or can be made available by the applicant. It is, as you know, the applicant's burden of proof to show that Bandon does have the infrastructure capacity, and there's no indication in their submittals that they have provided such proof. Evidence to the contrary of Bandon's deep problems with adequate infrastructure abound both in our testimony, city manager newsletters, Bandon infrastructure reports, newspaper articles, city council minutes, and other documents, many of which we submitted into the record. For example, just to give a few small examples, both the water treatment and wastewater treatment plants are operating at or above their engineered capacity and beyond their design service life. The applicant must demonstrate that despite the overwhelming evidence, the public facilities and services have adequate capacity, and they cannot do that. The memo provided by Mario Day and Cheryl Bremer, both of whom have extensive experience on the Utilities Commission and Planning Commission, and which Orca has submitted into the record, show that the water and wastewater treatment plants are not only operating above or beyond their engineered capacity, but they're also that any future water needs will not be available from either Geiger or Ferry Creek, according to the 2003 Water Management and Conservation Plans. Beyond that, there are credible concerns about the deterioration of water lines, the insufficient storage capacity of treated water, the unexpected costs associated with deferred maintenance and new regulations for water treatment, and most importantly, that the water treatment facility is long past its service lifespan. Bremer and O'Day also show the wastewater plant is working beyond its engineered service life, and there are no foreseeable plans to increase its capacity. There are several tangible concerns, including maintenance, lack of city planning, and no area on which to expand. City capacity is also an issue. The city's public facilities and services are not only at capacity, but the proposed development would exceed and exacerbate the existing limits even further. The long-term practice of the city to not adequately budget for water and sewer utilities operation, maintenance, and capital improvements since fiscal year 2011-2012 has created a backlog of expensive deferred maintenance and capital improvement projects. Deferred maintenance and costly upgrades are necessary to satisfy the municipal code requirements of the conditional use criteria. We know from various documents that the water treatment plant requires more than 18 million in capital improvements. Replacement of water lines will cost more than 14 million. There are no foreseeable plans or projects to increase water treatment or sewer utility capacity, and no source of funding for any such increase has been identified. Even more concerning, perhaps, flows for fire hydrants are dwindling, and that implicates the issue of safety and fire suppression deficiencies. Surrounding properties already have hydrant flow deficits. There is no substantial evidence in the record that the city has enough water flow to provide fire protection, let alone provide services to a new and large development. Until the safety of residents has been addressed through the problem dealt with of sufficient hydrant flows, there's no way the developer can satisfy the conditional use criterion on infrastructure availability. The record just does not contain substantial evidence that fire protection water is available. The city staff has given many conclusory responses about this and other matters without a substantive basis. We have submitted into the record proof of the assertion that water for fire suppression is lacking, including an article entitled "The City Abandoned Situation is Dire and Systems Dysfunctional," which states, quote, "There are loud and glaring doubts as to the managerial capacity and financial capacity of the water and wastewater systems. The jurisdictional, legal, and financial inadequacies are so serious that I fear there's a good chance the drinking water system will soon not be able to maintain Oregon's drinking water requirements or meet Bandon's desired level of service, and the sewer system is compromised to the point that it may not meet discharge requirements." Another article, Bandon's Water Problem Solvable, says, "The problem is water flow. Due to a substandard water system in some areas, the city can't meet state fire codes, and the city's, says the city's fire chief. State law requires sprinklers in buildings constructed in those areas." Public comments to this proposal that we're dealing with here tonight allege that an in-depth analysis is required to ensure that the existing systems can accommodate the additional load without compromising the safety and well-being of the community. Other testimony before you expresses the basic problem with the city, on the one hand, identifying infrastructural shortcomings, which have been going on for years, and on the other hand, alleging tonight that there's sufficient capacity for the proposed development. The city just can't have it both ways, raising issues about the capacity and quality of the sewer and water treatment systems, and then proposing to approve a large development that will exacerbate the issues the city has already identified. The public here in the testimony, both Orca and other testimony that you have received, is merely echoing the red flags already raised by the city. There's nothing new in the material that we are raising, but merely pointing out what has been before you for many years. Orca therefore respectfully requests that the city council approve the appeal and deny the application for a resort at Gravel Point. As it is clear, the city is unable to provide the needed infrastructure required by Bandon's conditional use criteria, nor has the applicant given any indications of being willing or able to provide the many millions that would be necessary for Bandon to upgrade its failing systems. Orca does recognize that the desire to approve this development may be very strong, given Bandon's near total reliance on the transient occupancy tax for city revenue. But that budget need is not a reason, a legal grounds, on which the council can find that the application meets city requirements as laid out clearly in its own ordinances. The fact is that the applicant has not met their burden of proof on the matter of infrastructure availability, and the city clearly does not have the capacity to meet the requirements of so large a development. The city's own documents make that clear. Thank you.
Anyone have any comments or questions for Cameron La Follette? Okay, thank you. Now it looks like we're going in, if this is correct, it looks like we're going into the community's testimony and then what?
There's a second appellant.
Oh, I'm sorry. Come on.
Good evening, Bruce Spencer, 1349 Strawberry Drive. Wow, it's nice to see so many residents concerned about this project here in place, and the impressive team right next to me here. And the people online, I don't know where the camera is, but welcome. I have notes. I'd prefer to speak without notes, but I'm sorry, there's too much here and it's just too important. Madam Mayor, honorable members of the council. First thing, the applicant's not going to come up here. Great job. Thank you, Mr. O'Connor, but he's not going to come up here tonight and say that you're right. We're going to mess up the roads. You're right. The utilities won't support our project. Not going to agree that their application is not in compliance with every code section that we testify against as well. You'll see and hear other testimony, or what you might come up with on your own. I do they'll hold a community meeting. They will promote the benefits of their project. They won't talk about the deficiencies, the drawbacks, the negatives. Mr. O'Connor stated in his discussion that he wants to sell this project to you, and that's what this is. They're trying to sell you on this. They, of course, going to talk about oh, look at me doing this here. Thank you, sir. Some extemporaneous data, things like jobs, taxes that really aren't applicable to any of the code sections pertaining to this this plan. But since he did bring it up, some of the figures that Mr. O'Connor provided are also provided in the staff reports, but they have not been scrutinized. The occupancy tax, $1.6 million. That's based on an average. You have the detail, and you could look at it and see if it's complete and accurate or not. It's based on an average of $1,400 per night for the villas and $470 per night for the hotel rooms. Fully burdened with the 11% occupancy tax, that is the statewide, the 1.5 for Oregon, that is $1,554 a night for the villas. $522 roughly for the hotel rooms. And that's average. That's not considering their peak. I'm not sure if any, when I say that these numbers haven't been scrutinized, has anybody looked to see what VRBO, Airbnb rates are? I know you did receive some testimony. I had looked previously as well. You cannot spend half of that on what you'd be spending on the villas here in Bandon otherwise. Same with the hotel rooms. The most you can spend on a hotel room during July 4th weekend at peak is going to be $400 totally burdened. So if they're providing information that they're going to, this development will be providing $1.6 million plus in TOT, growing to 2 million, I believe, by year 4. Somebody has to look at those numbers. SDC as well. He discussed SDC, which again, appreciate Mr. O'Connor responding to some of my testimony there, or appeal document. $1.3 million. In other testimony they provided, other documentation, they've stated that the break even on SDC is 86 units at 25 plus acres. If we were to have a 1/4 acre unit, which is well above Bandon's, twice as much of what Bandon requires, you're going to have 100 units, over 100 units there. Their SDC, they are telling us that SDCs over a long time will be more beneficial to the city by allowing organic growth in this area than by having a big development put in all at once. Organic growth is also going to, this will take 2-3 years to build. They're not going to be able to get local people to build this. They're going to pull people outside of the community, possibly outside of the state, to build this. At organic growth, cost to build a home in Bandon, I actually don't know. I'm going to guess $300,000, give or take. I'm sure there's a wide variance there, but that money stays in the community. That money goes to it because there's going to be time for our local constructors, professional people, technicians, et cetera, to take these jobs on. And so, again, these numbers need to have some scrutiny. My written testimony counted their job data. I just counted their occupancy data, occupancy tax data, et cetera. My testimony also provides specific references that I believe reflect non-compliance with several sections of the Bandon Municipal Code. And again, I apologize. I said I'm going to have to refer to my notes. Including sections specifically listed in the notices of public hearing, as well as other sections I believe are applicable. As Madam Mayor, you mentioned, we can bring up criteria we believe apply to this decision. I'm going to outline some of these for particular emphasis. This is one I really have to look at, excuse me. 16.04.070E2C4, where the applicant accused me of not complying with this section in my appeal document. This was submitted by the applicant to prejudice my substantive rights in this hearing. What the applicant is really getting at is that they are trying to limit all of our rights to testify in this hearing. And they're also doing so to persuade you to not accept some of the rightful testimony they think might be damaging to them. This is a de novo hearing. We are all entitled to bring up testimony we feel is relevant, and the council has the right and privilege to entertain all such testimony. Okay, I got a bit involved with that one. Some of the other points in my written testimony, 8.04 regarding garbage and waste as it pertains to discussion of other utilities addressed in this application, as well as how 8.04 is applicable overall in the council's consideration to section 17.04 and 17.20.10. 8.08 regarding traffic, noise, and other nuisances. 16.08.040 regarding land use, which I brought up during the planning commission hearings. I understand the argument against it, but I think I found something new and additional in the code that I think might better help you how to decide this particular issue, whether to require a certain report. Seventeen point oh two, a new one. Specific to these units not falling under the abandoned city definitions of hotels and motels as conditional use outlined in 17.20.030E. Further, 17.02 again, specific to their restaurant facilities not falling under the abandoned city definitions of commercial retail sales and services under 17.020.02.030D. Okay, everyone's looking at me weird in that one, I get it. Those are definitions under 17.02, and the purposes of those definitions are compliance with the entirety of chapter 17. And you can compare that with my testimony after, if you go through that. This is a big one. Where the applicant has submitted false written statements, 19.08.010. The reason it's a big one is because it's accusatory, and I know, and I apologize upfront if I offend anyone. But the council has to determine whether the developer has the experience and the ability to complete a project of this scale. I'm using this code section to give you the opportunity to look further into that. And I'd also appreciate if you look further into that code section. Um, 17.04, 17.20.01. As they pertain to things like avoiding congestion, orderly growth of the city, protect natural resources, stabilize property values, provide adequate space for housing, protect the area's unique qualities, and so on. Also specifically stating careful examination of proposed developments will be necessary for consideration to these items. These are items that have been brought up in the staff reports, items that have been brought up in other testimony in the appeal. 17.04 and 17.20.010 do allow you the opportunity to say, hey, there are things about abandoned this doesn't fit in. Okay, you've listened to my testimony, you decided the merits of the application on the code or you're asked to listen to my testimony and decide the merits of the application on the code section. Regardless of its applicability, you'll also be, I'm sure, considering other extemporaneous information. There's obviously conflict between what I bring up, what other residents, citizens are going to testify, and what the team here, the applicant, is testifying about both code sections and that data. You'll need to decide which side's testimony is applicable. Staff reports will provide you, this is so convenient. Staff reports will provide you guidance, but some of the staff's guidance might also need to be adjusted in light of this hearing's various testimonies. You're also free to disagree with staff guidance. Along those lines, well, I've already discussed that point. I won't bring that up again. I submitted appeal. This is my technical talk. I've submitted appeal. You've opened up a de novo hearing. I know there's an overwhelming amount of testimony and data you have to go through. I think there is a misconception that a decision needs to be made tonight. A decision does not need to be made tonight. You have the opportunity to review and assess all submissions, whether applicant, whether appellants, whether residents, anyone else for that matter, as well as to perform your own research and analysis on this. Well, it's obvious a substantial number of abandoned residents are against this project outright or have concerns as it's currently designed. But you have the information you need or the ability to gather additional information and obviously the concern to make the decision you think is right for the people abandoned. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you.
No questions. I'm almost disappointed in that.
Well, we got all your written documents
Yep.
and your written stuff was easier to follow because then we weren't listening to all the,
So it's.
it was your written documents were really well presented. So
Thank you.
anybody have any questions? Mr. Spencer? Okay. All right, thank you. Now we'll see if I can, now we're going to be taking testimonies from other
Is
people.
there rebuttal time?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. It says testimony from other people. After all testimony is taken, because he wants to hear, you'd want to hear what other people have to say before you rebut. So this part made sense. This does make sense. Okay. All right, now do we have a list of people that want to testify?
Just for your information, we're gonna have a timer up here that Mickey's gonna run. It's gonna show green for 3 minutes. When it gets to the 2-minute mark, it's gonna go to the 2 minutes. 1 minute, it's gonna go to red.
No, when it's red, that means you're done talking.
That way, if we show you at 2 minutes, then you can't say that we cut you off, because in the planning commission, people got upset because I guess they didn't know until 3 minutes and bang, they couldn't finish their sentence. So by giving us, telling you at 2, you're gonna be able to finish your thought. We're trying to be as fair as possible.
Question? No? Okay, so the first one is Neil. And I presented you with his handout.
Oh, yes, okay. Give your full name and address.
My name is Neil Barlow. I'm at 1250 Tishatang Lane in Bandon. I will be impacted by the Gravel Point developments just down the road, but I do support this project. Hopefully everyone, oh no, you don't get my handout, so sorry about that. Gravel Point will be developed regardless of this application. If not this hotel, then what? Most likely houses. I would rather have a hotel that is trying to be environmentally friendly by protecting the wetlands, using native plants, avoiding light pollution, etc., rather than a developer bulldozing the lot. As mentioned, the wetlands are not significant, so they could be bulldozed. And individuals being built without regard to the environment. This is not a scare tactic. This land is too valuable not to be built on. Just look at the developments on either side of Seabird, and you'll see what's coming. This is not just my opinion. The city and the county have been planning for this growth for years. The maps that I handed to you show the planned, streets, north, south, east, west connectors through the donut hole. You can just about read that. Let's talk about money. Most cities rely on property taxes to pay their bills. In Bandon, lodging taxes are the largest source of income, which allows us to have one of the lowest property taxes in the state. Last page, which I'm sure you've seen before, is the budget. Every house within the city limits is a long-term liability, needing police, fire, street maintenance, park, etc., let alone things like sidewalks along Beach Loop. If no hotel rooms, new hotel rooms are added, taxpayers are going to need to make up the difference. So new houses are actually a liability. Tourists want to stay near the ocean. This is the right location for a hotel. Beach Loop already has several hotels and short-term rentals, so it fits right in with the nature. Hotels mean tourists staying longer, which helps support restaurants, shops, and encourages new business to stay open. New businesses to open. I hope the city takes this opportunity and manages the growth of this whole section of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
12 seconds to spare.
Thank you. I just have one comment because I keep hearing this. This is just an education rather than a question. I keep hearing that the reason that we have such a low property tax rate is because of the money from TOT. That is patently not true. The TOT money is a blessing for the city of Bandon, but the property tax rate has been low because Bandon is one of the 11 or 12 cities who has its own hydroelectric. So a lot of what you pay in your hydro bill helps to support the administration of the city, and that's the reason. It is true, we can do a lot more with TOT, and it is the largest piece of our budget, but it really doesn't have it. The property tax rate is statutorily, well, it can't be changed. So you don't have to worry about the property taxpayers paying more taxes if we don't get the TOT, because we can't raise the general property tax rate. It's there forever until the state people change that. So anyway, I just thought that I
For
would.
clarification then, so if we build more houses and the city budget goes up, who pays for it?
Well, the people that use their utilities, the property taxes cannot go up. It is
Okay.
locked in, and you use the word taxes, okay? Fees, well, you know what happens. We can't raise water and sewer without a vote of the people, so that pretty much protects the people also. You're pretty protected here.
But if the expenses go up, then how do you? where does
Well, it
money
won't
come
be with
from?
property taxes because that's a state law.
Someone's gonna pay for it.
Maybe your rates will go up if you'll vote for it. Okay, who's next?
Catherine Mills.
Good evening. My name is Catherine Mills. I live at 2832 Lincoln Avenue. We, the residents of Ocean Trails subdivision, Carter, Spinnaker, and Lincoln Avenue, request that the city of Bandon develop Carter Avenue like Ohio Street or Madison, which are blocked or have a gated access. Ocean Trail subdivision is zoned R1. R1 zoning criteria does not allow for the commercial access to a huge commercial complex. The original street configuration for the Carter area going west was for residential use. It does not meet the criteria the same if you are going to put in a big commercial complex. We understand that Gravel Point is not requesting the Carter be extended into Ocean Trail subdivision. So we are wondering why the Planning Commission in the city of Banding is requesting that this be done. This is our biggest issue, that if you do approve of this, which we have no complaint or we're for the development,
Okay,
but we want Carter to be used for emergency access only. We had in our subdivision in those streets, Carter, Lincoln, and Spinnaker, 85 residents sign a petition requesting this. And I guess that's pretty much because you already have our written statement for
we
it.
do, and thank you.
Yes,
Your question?
yes,
So all 85 of the people that signed the petition are for the development. Your concern is Carter. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I can't honestly say
They
that.
never
Some of
did.
them are probably not for the development.
Okay,
But they are strongly not for Carter being a through street because GPS is gonna send them right down our way, either on Spinnaker or Lincoln. That's gonna be the fastest way for them to go.
okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next,
Sandra, is it Stoddard?
I'm Sandra Schroeder and I live on 2939 Spinnaker Drive in Bandon, and it's right off Seabird. And my main concern was that if Carter is opened up as a street, then my road which is a residential area with little kids and dogs and cats, and us walking along, would be impacted by the construction project because it would be a fast way to get to that area. And the other concern I have is seabird. The joke is if there was a tsunami, how are we going to get out on 101? And if there's a whole bunch of other people using our seabird road, then, we might as well just stay home. But anyway, the other concerns I have are it's going to impact our neighborhood. And it just doesn't seem like I think it just seems like it's too big of a place. For years, we've had things in our utility bill letters saying that the sewer and the water were inadequate and that we need more money, we need more infrastructure. And all of a sudden, this is okay to build this huge project. That's just very mind-boggling to me. And the other thing is people are saying that if they're going to build 200 homes, that's going to be terrible. And this project is so much better. I've lived in Bandon for 15 years, and they have built 90 homes in an already streets, sewered, water district. And that has been 15 years. And I count them because I walk all around that area. And so how are we going to have 200 homes in a short time with no roads, no sewer, no water infrastructure in that area? So that is my concern.
Okay, thank you. I will say, Sandy, that most of the rate increases that we've asked for have been for operations of the system. Because we aren't allowed to raise our utility rates, just like everybody else, Pacific Power, Cusco Electric, everybody raises their rates usually every year. We can't raise our rates just for bare operations without a vote of the people. We're one of the few in the nation that has that lovely restriction. Next.
Tim Terry.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tim Terry. My wife Claudia and I live at 2841 Beach Loop Drive, which is pretty much ground zero in all of this. And I'm not here really to argue for or against the proposed resort. I'm glad that all of you are going to take that responsibility. And I pray for each of you to be guided in making the right decision in that regard. The point I would like to make this evening is that Seabird and Beach Loop Drive are residential areas. I'm assuming that the vast majority, if not all of it, related to the construction project and the visitors who come after the potential project is finished will be driving down Seabird Lane north on Beach Loop to get to the resort. There's a dispute or argument, I guess, about how much traffic that's going to be, but there can't be really any doubt that it's going to be substantially increased. And so my question to you is, to all of you, living where you do in your residential area, would you like to have that amount of increased traffic going up and down your residential neighborhood from now till end of time? And if you wouldn't, which I guess is what every one of you would say, then my question is, why would you want to inflict the residents of Seabird and Beach Loop with that situation? My suggestion is that we find a different, if you're going to approve the project, there's got to be another point of ingress and egress to it, which I suggest is 101. Maybe not the easiest way to solve it, but it can be done. It's doable. And so if the project is approved, I hope that you would at least make it happen such that it's done off of 101. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Robert Schroeder.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor and City Council. My name is Robert Schroeder and we live at 3159 Lincoln Avenue Southwest. I am neutral on the project. I think it's well designed and things that have been adjusted accordingly, I think make a lot of sense. Whether it's approved or not, I believe we still have the cart before the horse. I've heard comments that Bandon is becoming the Pebble Beach of the North, which is reflective of the natural beauty in our small community and especially along Beach Loop, which everybody takes pride in walking along. And whether it's people walking, whether they're bicycling or driving in two different directions. It's a vital that this perspective is maintained for residences and the city. I believe the project team has not adequately addressed congestion on Beach Loop. I can hear all kinds of numbers being thrown out that it's adequate as is. But if you go along Beach Loop, which I do on a daily basis, I understand how to slow down when I've got people with dogs and bikers and cars going in two directions. It's defined as a collector road, but it's really not much more than a rural road and inadequate for this amount of traffic. We shouldn't wait for an accident to prove a point. The project team has commented on a few things, extending Carter Avenue to Beach Loop, possibly as an emergency road. That does nothing to relieve the congestion on Beach Loop itself, because it would just be an emergency exit. They talk about a new trail on the site. That trail is going to be used primarily for the people in the new development. It's not going to help anybody walking on Beach Loop. They talk about working with the city to support some kind of financial commitment, and says, why should we build a sidewalk that goes nowhere? Well, the city is working on a study right now. And what I'd like to see is that they have a firm commitment of financial towards that access development that the city is looking for. And then finally, I ask for three things. One, that financial commitment upfront in writing. $20,000 for a design isn't adequate. ODOT and the city look to the traffic light again on Seabird. And then finally,
Give me your third. You can finish your third. Just say it.
finally commit to an easement through the development to talk about the future extension for Edna Street to 101.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Chris Morris.
As soon as Rick is finished testimony, we're going to take like a 5-minute break. So,
It's not personal, is it?
no, no, because I would have done it before.
You can tell I'm a little slow. Actually, my concerns are not new. I've heard them covered by lots of people tonight, and I've talked to several of you already. As I sat in the meet and greet gathering at the barn, I sat there thinking to myself, when we have circles in the sand, you know what kind of traffic problems we've got. And that's a small activity. To me, trying to think of it just as common sense, with common sense, the idea of putting that kind of traffic in that neighborhood, to me, it's bizarre. We not only have a concern about the nature of the community that people would be going through, but there's also a concern about emergency access. This town knows what can happen with a fire, devastating fire. Every month we hear that siren go off, and we're reminded about the possibility of a tsunami, earthquake related situation. So we not only have an emergency concern, but we also have a concern for the nature of the community that this city is obligated to try to protect. And That's pretty much it. A lot of people have covered the same thing. And so I apologize for being redundant, but I think that just draws attention to the fact that it is a primary concern. I love the idea of having much of the natural environment protected. And so, and that side of it, I would say, that I would support that aspect of it. But I think a route out to 101 is imperative. And that should be the expense of the developer, not the city, because they're benefiting from this development.
Rick, what's your address?
Oh, yeah, my address. I live at the other end of town. I don't have any.
Well, just give it, June Avenue.
Just give it to you?
Well, just, you gotta speak.
Yeah,
into the
it's
record.
1051 June, down by the hospital.
Okay, but what?
1051 June.
10:51. Thank you, Rick. I knew you were around the corner from me, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
hear it.
Thank you.
All right, next.
No, break.
Oh, break, sorry.
Unmute.
Unmute. You're muted.
What's happening?
Okay. However, that does not mean that with some changes that I am unalterably opposed to the application. I think that there are things that can be addressed and that would make me feel much more comfortable about any type of an approval. The one thing I really want to focus on is traffic on Spinnaker and Lincoln. And one of the reasons that is such an issue is that those two streets, Spinnaker in particular, serve a lot of homes in that area, but there's very limited access. Those are the only two streets you can access off of Seabird into the developments where we live. Adding this project to that in terms of access from Spinnaker or Lincoln will exacerbate an already difficult problem that we have, and I really think will be a public safety issue. I really appreciate Mr. O'Connor's offer earlier tonight in terms of a barrier for access on Carter Street. And I think that I recommend that you give serious consideration to that. In addition, staff has talked about their construction traffic mitigation plan. Now, contrary to the way they characterized it, it will not keep trucks off the street, but it will create certain parameters. I'm requesting that as a condition of approval, that there be a post-construction traffic mitigation plan that will address some of the concerns that have been raised. And I've got 3 seconds left, so I'll entertain any questions.
We're good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was surprised that this got approved, given 15 years of having serious problems with water and sewer. Wow. $20,000 going into some projects, is a drop in the bucket. My main concern, however, is Seabird. Seabird traffic is Beach Loop traffic. Seabird's another story, but the Beach Loop is serious with lots of people, residents especially, walking with children and dogs along there. We've had a 15-year plan to do something about the walkway along there, and on part of it along the river, they've done a pretty good job with coming this way. After 11th Street, essentially nothing's been done, and it's going to be a serious problem. It's a serious problem right now. There's going to be people that get hit by cars in there, not only dogs, but people as well. I think there's got to be mitigation of that some way. Somebody's got to come up with more than $20,000 to help that walkway along there. It's a serious problem. Anyway, that's my main concern. Somebody's going to get killed on Beach Loop, and I'd even forgotten about the circles of the sand, which has shown us, wow, adding 120 cars or 150 cars or maybe even 200 cars along there. Wow. The state police have gotten involved in traffic control there. Anyway.
Mike, you want to give your address just in case?
Sure. 1455 Pelican Place, Bandon. So I'm along Beach Loop Drive, that corridor, and anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
I hope you can put conditions on things to go a long way towards solving some of these problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Kay Harden.
Hello, my name is Kay Harden. I live at 1147th Street Southwest here in town. And I want to thank you, Mayor and Council, for letting us speak tonight. My question is, this is a very expansive project, and I would just be concerned as to what other projects and names of these projects that you have completed and where they are and what they're called, so that we can look at them and verify the work that you've already completed. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay.
Madam Mayor, we have nobody else in the building, but we do have Zoom people that would like
Okay,
to speak.
come on.
Bear, can you unmute, please?
Hello?
Hello, Bear. You're gonna have 3 minutes starting now.
Okay, my name is Bear Slothar. I live at 597 Ohio Street. And, you know, I've heard a lot of this, and actually I kind of resent the implications of the person from Orca, that she cited all kinds of things that are unsubstantiated, articles, we don't know what they are. And she's up in Astoria, has not got a clue as to what's going on down here. And I've actually talked to the city people, and they say they can do it. So who are you going to believe? Some foreigner or or the people who run it? But the other thing I just wanted to comment, I'm part of Circles in the Sand, and he said it's small. Actually, it's not. The traffic from Circles in the Sand, we rarely have less than 200 or 250 people, sometimes as many as 500 people show up for that, which is over a very short period of time, you know, a few hours. And by the way, there is a shuttle for people who don't want to park there. I'm just saying that we're dealing with, and it's not even close. I mean, it's 10 times the traffic that you would get from that from the project. Anyway, I'm for the project, and I think it would be good for the town and the city. And I think that a lot of what we're hearing is just people who don't want things to change, and I think that's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Bear. I have one little comment. I think the Circles in the Sand problem, if they were in your yard or your driveway, you might not be quite as happy about it, because I have talked to a number of neighbors who do not appreciate people. It's a real, yeah, there needs to be a way to take care of that during Circles.
Yeah, you're right. And we're working with that.
Oh, sorry, Bear. I wasn't gonna chime in, Mary, but since you mentioned it, imagine if Circles in the Sand had 190 some parking spaces that they could allocate to that.
Yeah, that would,
You know.
yeah.
Thank you, Peter. You gonna get them for us?
No, the implication is that this hotel is putting in 190 some parking spaces.
Oh, maybe we can have people park there.
Maybe you'll
Sorry.
have to when they start arresting people that are parking in the right of way on Beach Loop. All right, who's next on Zoom? I hate Zoom.
Nancy Post, unmute.
Is that me? Hi, my name is Nancy.
My turn. Nancy, your turn.
Can you hear me?
Now, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, my name is Nancy Post. I live at 1365 Strawberry Drive. And so Strawberry Drive is going to be enormously affected by the Gravel Point Resort. but really my biggest concern is Beach Loop. And a lot of these issues have come up tonight already. But the fact remains that it is one of Bandon's most significant scenic resources. It's part of the Oregon Coast Bike Route, and really it's world famous. And, you know, it deserves more respect than it's getting from this. The traffic impact study only addressed the intersections, not the condition of the roadway. Currently, on the city's website, there is a collaboration between the planning department, the TSP, and ODOT that is trying to solve a lot of the problems on Beach Loop. They outline the current issues it has, and they talk about potential fixes. All the fixes are very complicated. They're expensive. There has been no designated funding for them, but you know, the time has come to start talking about that stuff. Another thing I keep hearing is that to appease the Carter, Spinnaker, Lincoln neighborhood, I understand why they don't want traffic going through there, but the only solution anybody can think of is to dump more traffic onto Beach Loop. That, you know, that doesn't seem very wise to me. The resort claims that the path, which is largely to service the outlying buildings from the main things, is going to be part of a multimodal solution to Beach Loop problems. You know, all you have to do is look at the plan, go out there and look at the site. That's just not going to happen. And they also claim that the path will sort of prop up the scenic resource inventory. There is absolutely no view from the path. It looks into our backyards, into our back windows. Really, there's no view at all from Gravel Point, period. So we really need to look at the Beach Loop issue. We really need to think about what the legacy of the council, the town wants to be before we just trash Beach Loop with 2x, 3 times as much traffic. Thank you.
Time's up. Thank you. Next. What?
Jen, can you unmute, please?
People say their names too.
Yeah.
What's up? Nancy's unmuted.
Oh, hello. Jen Proctor Andrews. My address is 875 Delaware. I just really want to urge this council to take a really good look at what is being offered, because what you're proposing or thinking about essentially giving away, in my opinion, is irreplaceable. And I want to just kind of reflect on what Nancy just talked about in concerning the multimodal pathways, Beach Loop Drive, the fact that it is a world-renowned area, those wetlands. This area is not replaceable, and we can't get this land back. And I take a little bit of offense at the applicants stating that what would be there otherwise would be what, I'm not sure what he said. It was something like just, you know, regular old houses. And this is a community. And I've been following how difficult it is for people to get their one vacation home permitted. And I'm quite surprised at the kind of, I guess, I don't want to say lackadaisical, but kind of flippant attitude about some of these regulations, just kind of being maybe looked over. And I wonder what kind of community benefits package contract is being negotiated. And if there isn't any, why not? Why is $20,000 okay? Or an estimated, you know, transient tax of maybe 1.5 million and maybe 2 million, but it's not guaranteed. And also to the point of the person who stated that these Orca people were from out of town, well, this developer is not in Oregon, they're from California. What are you giving away to them? And what is it going to do to the community? And there's going to be so much traffic. And it's going to be completely changed. It's going to completely change the area. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else?
Is there anybody else on Zoom?
Yep.
Hello?
Hi.
I'm here. Pam Jensen. Can you hear me? Okay, now can you hear me?
We can hear you. What's your address?
Oh, it's P.O. Box 1375, but I do reside on, my husband and I live on Beach Loop. My comments are regarding the impact of increased traffic on Beach Loop due to the proposed Gravel Point development consisting of 110 hotel rooms and 32 villa suites. There with 2 access points. And I think it's absolutely insane. I shouldn't say that somebody would say, hey, let's just feed it all and funnel it onto Beach Loop, which already is going to have, issues because of a proposed development. So yeah, you can't just feed it all into Beach Loop. I think it's a stretch. I don't think it's a stretch to say that a majority of visitors would want to drive along Scenic Beach Loop. I also know that Bandon Beach Ventures stated that they wanted to build employee housing. I believe it was maybe for as many as 30 employees. It's over maybe like southeast of the skate park. So those people, a percentage of those people are going to be using Beach Loop in order to go to and from work. I've lived here on Beach Loop for 8 years. I walk between 11th and Whale Watch regularly. Traffic has increased significantly during the time that my husband and I have lived here, not even accounting for summer visitors. A major concern I have is how Beach Loop will handle an evacuation, should that be necessary with a major addition in vehicles from this proposed development. There are numerous part-time residences and vacation rentals in the area between 11th Street and Whale Watch. We need to take into consideration if those part-time residents and vacation renters are here in the event of emergency, factoring that into how much traffic and how quickly Beach Loop could handle this primary evacuation route. Yesterday, my husband and I walked the area between 11th Street and Whale Watch, taking note of part-time residences and vacation rentals. This was based on observation and signage. As we frequently walk this area over the years, we have a pretty good idea of who are full-time and part-time people, often having conversations with them. Airbnbs are unknown and are not included in my count. On the west side, there's around 31 properties that are either part-time or vacation rentals with 2 new builds. The Vern Brown addition was counted as one property, but would add many vehicles to the traffic flow and congestion. Duplexes and triplexes were each counted individually. From our observance, 17 are vacation rentals and with 1 permitted but not operating yet. On the east side of Beach Loop from Whale Watch to 11th Street, there are 16 homes which are part-time, 6 of which are vacation rentals. Sunset Motel was considered 1 unit, but the traffic input would vary depending on the season. There's also 1 new build and 1 home for sale. The Commons, which is on Shore Pine.
Thanks. Your time is up. We appreciate it. I don't know how else to say it, but
K-A-M, can you please unmute?
Hi, my name is Cammie Bunis, 3080 Natalie Way, Bandon. So for safety, I think you have to incorporate either Edna Way to 101 or Carter and Lincoln to Seabird. And I am, as a nearby resident and a regular pedestrian in our neighborhood, I would prefer the Edna Way access to 101. And the proponent should be required to pay for it, not the city. And it should be required as part of the development, not the future. I'm against any large-scale development with 150 plus parking spaces without complete improvements along Seabird and Beach Loop. 20,000 bucks?
What'd you
Very
say?
disappointing. Based on the public comments, it seems like the out-of-state developer has disparaged the quality of our neighborhood, and I think that sucks. So I'll just share with you, I agree, we need a better community benefit package. We need access to 101.
Mr. Clay, we just got a couple of questions, like what the fuck were you doing in my mother's house?
What's going on here? Have I lost control?
He's in control.
I know, and I'm
Nobody's
just kidding.
unmuted.
So two people are talking?
Pam, go ahead.
Anyway, it seems to, oh, and on the, so anyway, the community benefit package does not seem adequate for your residents or your visitors for safety's sake. And, yeah, I guess I'll wrap it up. Oh, Orca, I do need to make a comment. Orca acts on behalf of our state, the values of our ocean shore, and our best interest as a city. I really resent disparaging their contribution.
Thank you. I didn't really hear what you said. All right, who's the next?
Anybody else on Zoom?
Okay, we're going to go on then. Now, it says after all testimony is taken, the applicant will be given 10 minutes for rebuttal testimony. And then it says to close the hearing, but then there's a lot of other things here with no time constraints. And I guess we can talk about that when I get to them. Yeah. Okay, so anyway, 10 minutes. I don't know what that means.
Hello, Dan O'Connor again. I'll keep the rebuttal brief. I strongly disagree with Orca's position concerning the capacity of the utilities and especially the water system. Orca references a 2003 water master plan. You guys adopted your water master plan in your current one in 2022. We have met with the engineer. We have engineers. We met with the Dyer Partnership engineer, went through it. There is no capacity issue. We reviewed the presentation of the water master plan in 22 to the city council. And I believe it was Steve Major that was stating there was a lot of misconceptions about the water system. You have a good water master plan. There are capital improvements set forth in there, but there is no evidence that the capacity is insufficient on any of the utilities. And with Orca's, submittal of 1,000 pages, at 3 o'clock before the hearing, and it's all this misinformation when the evidence is right before you in your current adopted water master plan. Then in terms, I'm moving on from that, then in terms of critical of the $20,000 contribution to the thing, keep in mind, there's a $305,000 traffic SDC that will also be paid by the developer at the time of issuance of building permit. And so just want to emphasize that. And as if the hotel is approved and developed and stuff, the developer, which is born and raised in Coos Bay, not California, we look forward to working with the city. And during construction, there will be issues that come up. And that's why we're agreeable with the condition that we have construction management meeting plan, in that we will basically do probably quarterly neighborhood meetings on Zoom for construction management, because on a project this size, there will be issues. And what we expect and hope is that the neighbors or the city contacts us if there such an issue arises, and we'll resolve it. And so in a lot of the testimony, apologize for Mr. Spencer's testimony. The system development charges that we calculated, we submitted them to the city for review and correction, and I had a mistake on the water one because the SDC on water was increased and I had 300,000 and change. It's actually 500,000. So this stuff has been vetted. And based on the testimony that I've heard today, I'm respectfully request that the city impose a barrier on the boundary line on Carter Avenue. We'll do the dedication. We will do the street improvement as part of the deal. And clearly it's been it's a common request and we are open to that. And so we suggest that you do it. That is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, according to this roadmap, it says I closed the public hearing. Okay, well
Sorry.
then who gave me this?
Up the top part of it, if you scroll down to numeral 9, it's time to ask for staff comment.
Okay, but under here, it says close the public hearing.
Keep reading.
But once I've closed it, then do I open it up again?
No.
See, I knew this was gonna happen. Never mind. I'm,
Just keep reading.
Except it says-
You're on Roman numeral 9. It's towards the bottom of the page.
okay.
She's at the bottom.
Staff comment.
She can't hear you too well.
Wait, clear on,
think
clear under,
you-
clear over here? Well, then what happened to it from all of here, all the way down over to
So
here?
the part that you were reading was sort of the executive summary and then it goes through person by person. So if you have to get down to the staff comment.
So that's where I should be now?
Mhm.
And what do we do with all this other stuff?
You've just gone through it.
Just hit it.
No, we didn't. You haven't seen this. No, we didn't.
That's what they said.
All right, staff comment.
I apologize.
I hope
Um,
so.
I'm just gonna go over two brief things. So one, just to clarify, both on traffic and water. So I'll start with traffic. Beach Loop Drive and Seabird Drive are both collectors. They're identified as collectors in our transportation system plan, which they do exactly what they say they're gonna do, which is collect traffic. That also includes 11th Street up north and Franklin, which is unopened right now. Portion of it goes through the donut hole, but at some point that would alleviate some of the congestion on Beach Loop. But for those who had statements about that, I just wanted to make that part clear. The other part I didn't include in my initial staff report was that there is a condition of approval that the applicant be required to sign an anti-remonstrance agreement to the formation of a local improvement district that would cover the portion, their sort of their share of construction of sidewalks and bike lanes on Beach Loop Drive. One of the requirements is that our collectors are supposed to have facilities for biking and walking, which we've identified, and the council has put money towards doing a preliminary engineered plan for a pathway on Beach Loop Drive. And the city's hoping to wrap that up this summer and identify grant funding opportunities to pay for it, and hopefully get it installed before this project comes in, if it does. The other thing to note would be that regarding water, I'll just point out in our water master plan on page 88, it does go over the water treatment plant operations and building improvements. What it says in there is that the maximum day demand is projected to be about 1 million gallons per day by year 2039.
I started.
Oh, can you mute?
Shut them off.
The water treatment plant is rated and capable of actually treating up to 2 million gallons per day in its present condition. So like without making any changes listed in the water master plan, the treatment plant has the ability of treating 2 million gallons per day. I just want to make that very clear. And we are not projected to get anywhere close to that by the end of the timeframe of the water master plan. A little bit further on in the plan, on page 90, it also looks at fire flow data, which came up today. I want to point out that if and when an application gets to the building permit phase, that's when the state is going to, or the county at this point, reviews the plan for consistency with fire flow. So they would not, if a type of building required a sprinkler and there wasn't sufficient flow to serve that use, they would require that it be upgraded in order to serve that use. The other thing to point out, so on page 90, table 8.4.1 assesses the entire system fire flow and says that we actually have surplus storage, and I'm going to sort of do my own little of what's written here, but so it says an additional reservoir is not required based on storage capacity, because like I said, we have surplus storage for fire flow, but it is recommended that the city construct another reservoir at some point to equalize pressure down there. So we know that that's something that we will identify in the future, but it is not needed at this point in time.
Okay.
The other thing to note, sorry, just one more thing about raw water storage, and you are all aware of this, is that we do have an impoundment that currently holds 3.38 acre feet. We are working right now on a dredging of that impoundment, which would increase it to about 9 acre feet. So there, all of the issues that sort of the master plan identifies as being potential deficiencies, there's no evidence in the record that would support there not being capacity to serve the proposed use.
Okay, now can I bring up this fire flow issue? Because the fire flow, basically, they depend on the hydrants. So can I ask, it says here at some point that we can talk to the applicant, we can ask questions. It says on this document that you gave me. I just want, because rather than close the hearing where they can't say anything, I want to be able to see if they have a response to the fire flow issue.
So that would have been rebuttal.
They may continue their rebuttal. I don't believe they used up all their allotted time.
Well, I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
They may respond to your questions as part of their rebuttal.
Okay, because they still have 7 minutes. Well, there's no rebuttal below title X here, 1X.
I understand that, but if you have questions for the applicant may respond.
Okay. All right, my question has to do with the hydrants. What
So,
hydrant?
I'm just going to interrupt for 1 second. I
Right.
apologize. So the public hearing is open again. Okay, and this is part of our rebuttal. And so,
All right.
okay, ask away.
All right. In Malone's testimony that came in at 3 o'clock today, we at least were able, I was at least able to look at the first 3 or 4 pages. And they talk about the abandoned water, due to a substandard water system in some areas, the city can't meet state fire codes, the city's fire chief says. So I called the city's, I was in the back reading and I called the city's fire chief. Well, actually, he was fire chief for 50 years. He retired at December 31st, but he, in my estimate, is still the fire chief. And so earlier I had asked our public works director to show me the fire flows for each of the hydrants. And we're trying to figure out which hydrants are out there closest to your project. Now, are you putting in new hydrants, I wonder, or because the 2 hydrants, one was on Carroll Court and the other was on Whale Watch Way, the fire flows are 752 is the flow. And the fire chief said the flow for a 4,000 square foot home has to be at least 1,000, so that you haven't even got the fire flows on either of those hydrants for even a single family dwelling. And the fire chief said no one contacted him. And he was curious because this would be one of the largest buildings that would have to be, he was very concerned. And he said, if you want to go ahead and you're thinking about, approving it, then make a condition that the fire flow has to be brought up to probably 2,000, fire flow, 2,000 gallons per minute rather than. So I don't know if that's been addressed. I can't tell if it has.
I think that was what Dana was referring to, if I'm not mistaken.
But she's talking fire flows, but not at the individual hydrants. And that's where it has to be at the hydrant or you're not gonna, even though the capacity's there. In fact, in one hydrant available, the water was 1,783 gallons, but the flow, and he said the flow is what you have to go to. That's the constriction of how much water can be put on the fire. Okay?
Okay, so
Now,
there's a
you-
question in there.
Yes, there
Yes,
is.
okay.
Answer me.
I'm gonna have
Answer me.
Darren,
Someone answer me.
the engineer who
Okay.
would be the better person to answer, come up and
Okay?
answer
I would
your
love
question.
that.
Hi, I'm Darren Sandino and I'm with Parametrics. One of the things, so related to the fire flow, I think there's some discrepancy related to where some of the fire hydrants are at this point. So we're looking just to
See,
see.
that's what I don't know. I know where the
Right.
hydrants are, but.
Right,
you-
and
but
I
other
think to
hydrants-
get down to brass tacks, there are some that I think we want to look at to be able to verify exactly where those are so that we're giving you the correct answer. The other thing that comes into play that was brought up earlier in this discussion was, and I think Dana, maybe you had mentioned it, the size of the water line out there is
One's a
unknown.
6 and one's a 10, apparently.
If that's the case, and I mean, it was, that's speculation, and I think at this point, once we're able to verify those, that's going to give us a better sense of how we would be actively addressing fire flow if there are any deficiencies.
Because the chief said, I believe that the 2 hydrants that we referenced are on the 10-inch line. They are not on the original 6-inch line, because that would have been really bad. You wouldn't even have a flow of anywhere close to 752.
Yeah, and to that point, I think if I would be our desire to have a direct conversation with them and ensure know exactly what those lines are, so we're not speculating on what those are. And then the other thing is too, I mean, looking at, depending on the types of those hydrants, there are pieces that can be removed within those to increase flow too. And so those are things, really getting into the brass tacks of how we would address that and have a specific solution for how that would be orchestrated.
Well, what I believe what we would say would be that you had to, as a condition, you would have to reach the
Yeah.
safe fire flow. Now, how you do it, it doesn't matter but you have to do it.
Well, and I think the other thing too that Chris brought up as well as part of this too is that we would also be looking at as a team, the ability to supplement this on the project basis through sprinkled buildings. That would be a consideration. And then the other thing is we would also be looking at the possibility, to the extent possible, of sequestering groundwater rainwater and using that vaulted to be able to supplement any fire flow too. So I think there's some things here that we don't know, and out of respect for everybody here, I don't want to just provide an answer other than I
Sure.
think that I'm confident once we are solid on what the infrastructure is out there and some of these other approaches that we would like to take and explore related to fire flow, we are confident we can come up with something that would be workable for everyone.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to add that it's a matter of building code requirements and fire code requirements. They will dictate exactly the distance and spacing of fire hydrants on site. In addition, the development would be subject to those requirements to ensure fire flow safety, and you have the architect confirming that.
And that would be in the IBC or any of the other manuals related to that would be driven. So Tori, yeah, that's correct too. We would have to adhere to all of those as well. So,
But if you'd like, I do have a condition I've written for that.
I personally would like, I'm sure. Fire to me is, Bandon's history of fire. There is nothing more important than making sure that we can fight a fire out there. Because if we couldn't, there's a lot of homes in the area.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Maybe you could explain all of these other things to me. What am I supposed to do now? Next time I'm going to come to your office and I'm going to say, let us go through these one by one so that we don't have to look like the village fool. Okay?
Right, but so, Madam Mayor, you began by essentially reading the summary of how the hearing was going to go, rather than going step by step. You've covered the applicant's case that's set out in 5, the appellant's case that's set out in 6. You have let other testimony come in, which is step 7. The rebuttal has now closed, so long as you don't have any additional questions of the applicant.
Are you following where she's at?
Not really.
Okay, let's make sure you.
Because there were 4 sheets and I went
But what she's saying
exactly.
is that you were following a summary and then,
Where's the first?
I don't know where is it your summary?
There was 4 pages long, you guys.
There we go.
4
The appellant's
pages
case,
long.
other testimony.
Just go by the
What page are
Roman
you on?
numerals. Just go by the Roman numerals that she's stating.
3 or 4.
I can't find all the different pages.
I don't know what you did.
I didn't, let's put it this way, I didn't make it up.
comment.
close the hearing.
That's great.
Yeah,
There you are.
so you're right here.
Can I?
Well, yeah, because they moved,
Staff comment, yep.
because we didn't do
Hold on.
anything from here to here. Okay, I'm not gonna close.
We have not closed anything.
We didn't go
But that's
into
the next
anything
step.
from here to there.
But if the counselors have questions of the applicant, now is the time to ask them.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, that's the step you're on.
Okay?
You were asked by an individual, and I'm asking you, I would like to know what projects has your company done and where?
Me or
Whoever, the developer.
I guess Brett, want to come up?
Other than the one in Coos Bay, which I don't know what those projects are.
Yeah, thank you for that question.
You're welcome.
I spoke, Brett Perkins, developer for the project. Perk Development was started in 2019. I also serve as the Director of Project Development for CW Driver. CW Driver is a 105-year-old builder in Southern California. We do $600 to $800 million a year in revenue. I've been either affiliated with or a part of over 20 projects in the last 6 years. Aside from that, I've served for ExxonMobil in the Global Real Estate and Facilities Department for 4 years. I've done numerous residential projects throughout Hawaii, Pasadena, Terranea Resort, and then I've also done a few single-family projects years and years ago in Coos Bay. So with that said, I've got the experience. Perk Development is a real estate and project development firm that offers a multitude of services. Perk Development is not a general partner, not an investor, not a limited partner. We're simply a for-fee company that represents ownership. Bandon Beach Ventures is owned by Stuart Jakes. He's based out of Alaska, and I've got a full team that's with me that represents him. So I'm the for-fee development manager. With regards to the project in Coos Bay, I do not have a project in Coos Bay. I'm under contract with the owner of Pony Creek Development, which is across the street from Pony Village Mall. We've been in due diligence for over 22 months and we still have not closed on the project. We're working with the seller to get through some title objections. I do have other clients that I'm working with. Some of those are under non-disclosure, but I've done plenty of jobs for private development. But we have not done anything locally to completion on a scale like this.
I was going to ask, this is a big scale.
Right.
And
And
who owns the property?
Bandon Beach Ventures.
How long? How
Uh,
long have they owned it?
since July of 2022. We've been in this process for 20 months.
Are you still employed by CW Driver?
I am.
Okay,
Okay.
I know that company well.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I have
Ben?
one.
We'll,
The SDC fees that the figures that you're quoting, are they actually based on a room rate of $400?
Well, not the
I believe, this is Dan O'Connor. I believe you're referring to the transient occupancy tax.
Exactly, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
It was a room rate, a hotel room rate of $470. And in the suite rate, which is more like, oh, I don't want to say that. It's a multi-room suite is $1,400.
That's why I figured 1,400.
Yeah,
And that was also based on a 50% occupancy rate.
correct.
I was in the hotel industry all through college in Southern California. And I remember getting laid off every winter because basically our recreational traffic was gone and we would solely rely on commercial traffic.
Right.
And, depending on the economy, sometimes you had it, and a lot of times you didn't. I think that a 50% occupancy rate is reasonable, but that room rate to me is exorbitant.
Well,
I just
I
wonder if
will.
that's going to be a true SDC figure.
Well, okay, on the TOT, I will just tell you this, in
TOT,
Brookings, it used to be the Best Western down on the beach. as it got bought out by a private, and they're charging $450 a night. And I don't know if you're familiar with the beachfront inn in Brookings. I mean, the rates that people are getting. You want to jump in on this? Yeah, go ahead.
We had a market study done prior to putting together this plan. And the market study that we had conducted through HVS, those rates were through the market study, and so was the occupancy. And so, of course, there's peak season and off-peak season, but we had them look at assets in Oregon, specifically Bandon Dunes, and the demand that Bandon Dunes is actually having on and off-peak. HVS is a consultant. We worked with their Portland office, and they specialize in hospitality market studies or feasibility studies.
I don't think they compare themselves to Bandon Dunes, but. Right.
I don't know.
Do you have any more questions for staff at this point?
Staff?
Yes.
I have one question. There was a question from one of the testimony. We had addressed the future possibility of connecting Face Rock Drive to 101. And I think somebody spoke about the possibility of Edna Drive as being an option as well. You have comments on that?
It would fall under the same circumstance that I described previously. There is the right of way is essentially landlocked.
Okay.
So there is Edna that comes into a site that then doesn't have a right of way, and then there's the project site next to it.
But Dana, if they approach why is it landlocked?
The two sites abutting this project site on the donut hole side do not contain rights of way. Platted rights of way.
How do you obtain rights of way?
Well, when that site develops, then we would require that they dedicate a right of way to the city to make that connection.
So there's a possibility that they could come to it in the right way, they just have to buy up the property?
Well, it would have to be part of this particular application. It would be an off-site improvement.
Mm-hmm. And that would relieve traffic on Seabird. Beach Loop.
It could, yeah. I'm not a traffic engineer, so I don't want to make any statements.
Well, it's something to look
yeah.
at. So if 101 is done.
But I think as part of the application, they are making accommodations for that through at some point.
Yes, so I think the applicant brought this up, that the configuration we requested that because they're requesting at a future date to vacate the existing streets, and there is a sort of like north-ish connection. We've required that they maintain that. So at some point there can be other connections over into the donut hole that may be made over to Highway 101. The other thing to note is that the donut hole has quite a few wetlands in it. So even in the city's transportation system plan update that we're working on now, we know that we're going to have issues when we try to make those east-west connections because there are wetlands that are going to get in the way. So I don't think it's as easy as just platting a right of way and going over. There's more work that would need to be done.
Of course, if we could come up with an east-west configuration, it would certainly take away a lot of the concerns that most of the people have. I mean, it's just a shame to put it onto Beach Loop Road, as we, even in the applications, it said, we understand this is a substandard street, but they blamed the city. Well, it's true. We haven't done anything. I don't know who to blame. I don't know if the easements are there to do anything else. It was plotted years and years and years ago, or platted, excuse me. And oh, no, don't do that, you guys.
Don't be doing that.
So anyway, unless you're on Zoom, of course, people started talking over each other on Zoom, but we can't do that here in the council chambers. But anyway, that would relieve, so it would just be interesting if we could do a real study as to what the cost would be to open either Edna or whatever the other Face Rock Drive to the highway. Because really, that would
Can
just,
we still ask questions or no?
I think we haven't, I don't think we've closed anything, have we?
You have not closed the hearing
Thank you.
at this point. So the applicant still has the ability to answer your questions, but at some point you are going to need to close the hearing and deliberate when
Yeah.
you're done asking questions.
Okay.
Can I just ask one question, whoever wants to answer it? When you formed the partnership or the LLC, did you think about looking at an east-west connection before you bought the property, or how you were going to enter this property? Just from the conception of what you were going to do, did you ever consider that or no? I don't know who could answer that because
Sherry could, she lives here. Yeah.
you're at Sherry.
Well, it's kind of this is Sherry McGrath, PO Box 1548 Bandon. I would say it came into play, right? It wasn't the first concept because it didn't own property associated.
Okay.
But, as soon as we started having the conversations with the city and we took a conceptual plan where we talked about the future connection points, and then it got incorporated into the plan.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sherry.
Well, I can say that I was on the city council 40 years ago. And during that, I went on in 1977, and this has always been one of the biggest problems is trying to, over the years, they did, of course, get Seabird, but the way Seabird opens with a big dip like this, when people are coming up the highway, it's extremely dangerous. Whereas what we really wanted to do was go through Edna or where Face Rock is, and we never did. And so this is now, we've allowed the area to build up like we have, and yet we've never gotten the second access to the highway, except through City Park. In my day, only access between Beach Loop and the highway was City Park. So you can imagine how safe it was for, you worry about little kids, We finally did the configuration where one went this way and one went that way, but it didn't change. And then finally, when Seabird came in, it helped it, but
I just wanted to clarify the reason why I asked that question, to put it on the record, is to show that the developer had looked into it before they started all of this. Just so we know that they didn't ignore an east-west egress.
so if there aren't any more questions up here to the applicant, then I think we can close the hearing. Entertain a motion to close the public hearing and the record. We don't want to leave the record open.
So moved.
It's been moved in second. Oh, has it been seconded?
Before we vote, can I ask a legal question?
Well, let me second it first and then you can talk.
Okay.
Okay. All right, it's been seconded. My question is, if we close the record, is that a grounds for appeal through LUBA? Given that, what is it, Sean T. Malone, the attorney for Orca, submitted 1,000 pages of information, and are they going to say, well, they didn't review all this material? This is grounds
They
for an
knew they
appeal to
weren't.
LUBA.
Well, there's been ample opportunities for submissions to the council. You're only required to keep the record open at the first evidentiary hearing, and this is not the first evidentiary hearing. And there's case law that is out there that it's not appealable to close the record at your final evidentiary
Good,
hearing.
okay. It's been moved and seconded that we close the public hearing and the record. All in favor? Unanimous.
All right.
So now
Here we go.
we can go into council deliberations.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I have two concerns. Fire suppression, which has been addressed, and traffic. Yes, ma'am. I'm known not to want to speak into my microphone.
Yeah, we learned.
I just have two concerns. Fire suppression and also traffic. That's my two concerns. I can't say that hasn't been addressed, and I can't say it's been addressed to my satisfaction either. So that's what I have to say. Anybody else?
I agree with you. Traffic.
At the bare minimum, that barricade has to be put up on
Yeah.
Carter so that it does not go into Spinnaker and these other neighborhoods, because that's what they'll do particularly. And the construction, it's going to be very, very important to have a very firm plan for the construction people, because they will take the shortest route. And one, I know that the last time a big project was developed out there, they, rather than even go down Seabird, they didn't want to go that far. They went through City Park, and it became a real bad issue. And they've got to, they've got to understand that they can't be just going wherever the shortest route. It's got to be an approved route for them.
Is that, excuse me, is that one of the conditions provided in the staff report that they close off Carter
No,
or Lincoln?
no.
Okay.
No, but I think Tori might have a recommended condition of approval for you.
Yes, as we discussed earlier, the requirement for a construction traffic mitigation plan is still subject to the submittal by the applicant for review and approval by city staff. So in that light, if it is the city council's pleasure, we could entertain two conditions of approval. One, in response to some comments that were made previously by a member of the public, that would read as follows: post-construction vehicular circulation plan. Within 6 months of the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, the developer shall be required to prepare a traffic vehicular circulation plan for mitigating potential traffic impacts to a level of insignificance subject to the city's approval. So if you were interested in looking beyond the construction impacts, which are temporary, and to allay the concerns of permanent vehicular traffic circulation issues within that area, then this condition of approval would be appropriate. And that would allow for the facility to be in operation. We could do an analysis and assessment of vehicular traffic patterns, and then formulate recommendations for mitigating any potential impacts that we deem to be adverse.
So that has addressed the construction transportation plan, the post-construction transportation plan. But there was also, you had some comments on
Yeah.
fire suppression and building code.
That's correct.
As well.
The architects, and they're all governed by the Uniform Building Code. And this is a national code that applies unilaterally to every development. And to ensure fire safety, they're required to meet certain standards. And that would be the location and placement of these fire hydrants, the PSI or pressure that is generated from these fire hydrants. This could all be controlled through engineering, lift stations. And that's part of the working drawing package that is subject to preparation if and when the project is approved by the city. So that is still the next phase, is the preparation of full-blown working drawings. And those would be reviewed and approved by the building department to ensure compliance. And the voluminous nature of those documents is why the architect and the applicant is requesting 2 years for approval. Is that correct?
Okay, I would also like to have the fire department consulted. But we don't have abandoned fire department. We contract with the rural fire district, and they provide excellent services for them, but we do not want to leave them out on important decisions like this.
Yeah, so I have a condition of approval. Condition of approval for fire flow. Project shall be required to comply with all applicable fire department requirements relative to fire flow and life safety measures pursuant to the building code.
Okay, so-
And then last proposed condition of approval would be project applicant. And this is perhaps in lieu of assigning or dedicating the $20,000 commitment as suggested by the applicant previously. We use that contribution and apply it towards the preparation of a traffic circulation route study that will investigate the feasibility of an east-west connection and the potential closure of Carter Street for emergency access only.
Okay, so if we close Carter, the only entrance and exit of this project is Beach Loop. Is that correct?
Again, the
Carter,
recommendation,
they get to the beach loop by Carter.
right, but the recommendation is to conduct an
Okay.
analysis so that we have an informed, professionally prepared traffic engineering study that would supplement and provide direction to city staff regarding the closure and or the potential for an east-west connection.
So we would, if we developed an east-west connection, we would close off Carter onto Beach Loop.
Yes, but it's all contingent
I
on
know that,
whether or
but-
not it's feasible.
Right. But now you mentioned a second ago about post, after construction, that you would still for 6 months want to look at the traffic flow. And that is an
Yes.
extremely good point, because I would like to see what actually happens to Beach Loop after this motel is built and is in operation. And if we have the kinds of problems that people have envisioned could happen just based on the traffic today, I think we need to be able to have a hammer to do something. And I don't know if it means, I don't know what the hammer we have, but
6 months after it opened, you can't, because of traffic that we've already approved that.
well, but,
built,
but he's,
you
but
can't
he,
close the place down.
but he's adding something in there that would make us look at it after
Yeah.
6 months to look and
Just
see
study
what
it.
the actual impact has been. I mean,
Right,
either
and this
accidents,
is-
either.
This is, again, I've been doing this for 20 years in California.
Yeah,
And this is a standard approach to mitigating and ensuring that potential issues or impacts are mitigated. And the only way to truly assess that would be once the project is open and operating, so that we could then analyze traffic patterns and determine how best to mitigate them further. And in
Mhm.
working with the applicant and the developer, I've been impressed with their willingness to work with the community. They held a community meeting, solicited input from the residents that were reflected in a comprehensive redesign of certain project elements to allay concerns of the community. And I think this would just be an extension of that. And I would ask the applicant to express support for the conditions if need be.
okay. Has everybody on the council read the existing conditions in the staff report?
Yes.
Mhm, yes.
Okay. Do we all agree on those conditions?
Yes,
We've got that part done.
but we're gonna get the additions.
Yes.
So
And
I
those
think,
were
so I
written-
think we can make the motion with the additions that we have, that you have written in.
That he's read into the record.
You've read into the record.
Can we
Yes.
do it that way, Shayla?
Yes.
Because it's too long to remember.
No, what you would do is recommend approval of the conditions with the additions that I just read into the record. And I do
Okay.
have them here in written form.
Okay.
for
Okay,
future
Madam
reference.
Mayor, are we ready?
So-
It is.
What are
Madam-
we doing now?
So
Go
if
ahead,
you're-
Shayla.
if you're going to make a motion at this point in time, your motion should be laid out. I don't know which way it's heading, but I'm
I just gave,
surmising that it's going towards approval based upon what you conversed here. Your initial part of your motion is that the appeals be denied,
yeah.
that the application be approved.
She's got it now, Shayla.
Okay.
She wasn't, she's got it.
do that.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I make a motion that the appeals be denied.
And
Wait,
no,
wait.
each one, that's all part of the motion.
Oh, it's all
Yeah,
one motion?
Yeah,
Yes.
it's confusing. Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Nobody said that.
Well, I'm saying
Okay,
it
here
now.
we go. Okay, Madam Mayor, I make a motion to, that the appeals be denied. The application, wait a minute, hang on.
The application be approved.
Yeah, but what about that?
Okay, the council adopt the staff report
Okay.
along with staff's proposed conditions of approval.
Okay, I'll just read the whole thing as is then. Okay. The appeals be denied, the application be approved, the council adopt the staff report along with staff's proposed conditions of approval and those conditions which were read into the record this evening by our city manager, and that staff is directed to draft an order to this effect.
Second.
Been moved in second by Madeline, and you all heard the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, let the record show, you all voted for it? Okay, let the record show it's approved 4-2.
Yours.
Did the,
I never,
you have voice for it?
Huh? What?
yeah, it was a voice vote. No, we saw it. I never believed that I might end up.
Did we have to
being-
do, did we have to do a roll call vote on that?
That's what I was thinking.
want a voice vote?
You want a voice vote? I mean, you saw the vote. Do you need another vote?
Type those up.
Roll call vote.
Roll call. Okay,
All right,
wait,
Brian,
roll call vote.
roll call vote.
No.
Jerry,
No.
Madeline,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Josh,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
and I would have voted yes. All right, so that was not as bad as we thought it was going to be. It seems like it was better than the planning commission because it lasted, they had to have two
Exactly
of
the
them.
same as the planning commission.
No, but they had to have two of them. Yeah, but I mean, oh, I know, but I mean, they had to have two.
So we are adjourned.
Yes.
They want to do. Study after.
Well, that's it. I was waiting.
I don't know.
What about all the heavy duty?